welcome to the Hub. It's been a while since we last saw you guys. Let's get to business. As always, my name is Nishant, and I'm joined by my favorite co-host, Chin.
What's going on? How we doing?
Doing all right. We're doing all right. As always, you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Pandora, you name it. We are the central hub for all things movies, and you don't want to miss this one. Chin, you want to kick things off for us?
Yeah, why not? We're gonna talk about Get Out. You know that movie?
Do I know that movie? Of course I do. Jordan Peele classic, nominated
hmm
for I think like almost 40 major awards, won like 17. A great debut film for the Key and Peele stud, if I may say so myself.
Good, good. So you know what we're talking about. Sure hope so. You remember the scene when Chris took a pic of Logan King, the guy in the brown suit, and started going
Yeah, yeah.
crazy? It's our biggest jump scare of 2018. I was not
Oh yeah.
expecting that.
I have to say that along with the last scene, obviously when he sort of kills the last two guys there. But
Hey,
spoiler, oh
spoiler
my bad,
alert.
my bad, my bad, my bad. A great scene for sure, and I think it was definitely an inconspicuous note as sort of what the movie was getting at. Obviously, I just spoiled some of it, but there's gonna be spoilers ahead, so just be aware of that. But let's get things running.
All right, yeah, of course. So in this episode, we'll focus on using a critical lens to describe the movie Get Out. There are three main ones we learned: new historicism, the Marxist lens, and the post-structuralist lens. And today we will be focusing on Get Out with the new historic lens.
Yeah. So of course, if you do not know, Get Out can really be interpreted as something that focuses on like generalizing race, as in the movie Chris, a black character, is forced into getting brainwashed by his white girlfriend's family, and they've really been doing this to black people for generations by putting their souls into a black person's body.
Yeah, the coagula, scary
Yeah,
business. We see
crazy,
Walter
bro.
and Georgina, the two black characters who have the body of two black people, and their brain is actually just controlled by Rose's grandparents, Roman and Marianne.
And you can
They're
obviously
tech,
tell, like right from the get go when we first saw those two characters, you could tell something was off, like right
yeah,
away.
they're 100%.
Yeah, and I think the film is really like a masterpiece that showcases new historicism in like a fun, modern, and even a satirical way. And I was looking up some stuff and I saw, according to poetryfoundation.com, new historicists look at literature alongside other cultural products of a particular historical period to illustrate how concepts, attitudes, and ideologies operated across a broader cultural spectrum that is not exclusively literary. And how would you like sort of tie that into what we saw in Get Out?
I mean, for Get Out, we could interpret this movie in such a different way for the abolition of slavery, the tense climate between the different races we have, especially in the US, and the tense
Mhm.
political changes that's caused the production of the movie. There's so many different aspects that tie in that could help make us analyze this in the
Yeah, of
historicist
course.
lens.
Yeah, and like the cultural product of slavery really displayed the rational fears that like black people have towards like wealthy white people, as we saw with Rose's family.
100%. And according to the Atlantic article, we could see the display of attention towards black people. See, quote, why us? Why black people, Jim scoffs. He couldn't care less what race Chris is. He has loftier artistic reasons. He says, I want your eyes, man, Jim growls, and take into account Jim is blind and having eyes probably would be a crazy experience for him. He says,
Yeah.
I want those things you see through. And we could see one theme in the movie is obviously race. And in mainstream American culture, we consider violence as somewhat heroic in a socially sanctioned context. Just wars, certain sporting events, even football. Do you see how freaking violent that is for
Yeah.
no reason?
Yeah,
Except we
for
still
sure.
love it. We still watch it every single Sunday. This view extends for the most part to our pop culture too. Our heroes from movies, televisions, and video games often just standing up to an unjust system, usually vigilantism, and
hmm
but when violence is used as by resistance of minorities, especially like Chris and Get Out, and pop culture tends to take a different view, and it could be skewed to look like something it really isn't.
Yeah, I think that's a great point to bring up. And I really think Hollywood especially really echoes that narrative, sort of reinforcing the idea that violence is just bad. It's just a
hmm
bad thing, and minorities only use it as a means of like maintaining harmony in a way. And like even in horror, as Get Out is a horror film, it's a genre sort of teetering on the edge with sanctioned violence. These black characters are typically only allowed to use violence when they're working like alongside like white characters. You really don't ever see, like at
Yeah.
least from the horror movies I've seen, like black characters with black characters. It's always like a mix of race. So
hmm
it's sort of weird. What do you think about that?
But then Get Out just does the exact opposite of what you expect. It
Yeah,
obliterates
yeah.
this narrative. See, for the first two thirds of the film, like Chris is like super silent. He's really just like the perfect boyfriend for Rose. He does everything he's asked to. He's polite. He's quiet. He just takes in that casual racism from her dad as he's just kind of sitting through these kind of old interactions. And so his silence is used to just avoid this hostility and create an appearance of politeness and compliance. And though he
Mhm.
remains nonviolent for as long as possible until it becomes too late.
Yeah, yeah, and I think the film like really does a great job at like emphasizing Chris's like level of fear sort of rapidly increasing.
Mm-hmm.
And he, as he attempts to remain calm, like as you saw in that close to the ending scene where he's sitting in the chair after being tied up and like hypnotized, he's sitting there before he puts like the cotton in his ear. He's like just patiently waiting around. He watches the TV, obviously. And I think even in real life, this narrative about black struggles to coexist within like a white society is
Mm-hmm.
that the black individual is always the person who starts the agitation, the troublemaker, and
Yeah.
even is like the source of the problem to be dealt with. But I
I mean,
still think because we're so conditioned by horror as a genre to sort of like talk about the guy trying to convince himself like that everything's fine when they're not fine, the audience is sort of like still on Chris's side, even as his fight against this white society goes on and escalates.
I think it's pretty fair when Chris finally does resort to violence. It's sort of like an empowering movement in that he outsmarts the other field, I guess. And Get Out, like
Yeah.
black violence isn't necessarily a temporary step to being like kind of in mode with other white people. Rather, white people are just intensely racist towards these other people. They're literally brainwashing people of another race. And by making audience members, like especially the white ones too, I bet even white audience members, as long as they're not necessarily racist, feel for Chris. They understand that this is a terrible situation to be in. And Get Out challenges the views on real life black resistance and protest.
Yeah, and obviously when we look at new historicism, we're still using those same ideologies that maybe were that Jordan Peele was trying to sort of reenact as we're
Mm-hmm.
looking in the past. And I think this has been some great analysis, and I think we both hit on some really good points that talked about new historicism in Get Out. And I mean, without further ado, we'll just go ahead and wrap things up. And as for myself and Chinmay from MovieHub, we hope you guys appreciated today's episode. We want to wish you guys a good day. Peace out.
All right, see you guys.